All right, guys, in today's video, because I'm sure this one's going to be a bunch of interests into this one here. Okay, we're going to talk about getting tools onto your Unraid server, right? The I guess the proper way, as they call it. All right. For those of you that might not know, a long time ago, well, not quite that long, you used to be able to install like a nerd tool pack thingamabob, and it would come with all kinds of tools that people like to use. Okay, I'm going to demonstrate just real quick. Right, I'm on one of my Unraid servers and I don't have htop. Okay, now if I wanted to get htop or anything else installed, the most recommended way they tell you to do this is you're supposed to use a Docker container. You install a Docker container that has said tool. You give the Docker container the privilege access it needs, right? And then that's that. So in this video, I'm going to show you guys how to basically build one of these Docker containers from scratch, right? I'll provide you the code. And then of course, you can take away, add what packages you don't want or you don't need. And then, right, I'll show you how you build it and then how you install it on Unraid. And then at the end, I'll show you guys as a bonus how to tag your container. Well, you're going to need to tag it anyway, but the tag it and like upload it to like Docker Hub, right? So make yourself a Docker Hub account if you want to be able to like actually save your build, so that all you have to do is just pull your container image and there you go, right? You don't have to go through this if you mess it up. So let's start with actually making a directory somewhere that I know I'm going to want to. So let me head to where I keep my Docker containers at. Okay, so that which would be here. All right, I currently only have like those two, and I am going to make a directory where I'm going to have this Docker build file, and I'm going to call it, I'm actually going to use the directory or use one that I already had made previously, because I've added some tools. So this would be a perfect way to actually show how that goes. So let's go ahead and go into this. And now we're going to Dockerfile. Okay. Of course, you can name the folder wherever you want, and you can name your container wherever you want, right? So you just don't have to pay too much close attention to those, right? But now here we are, right? We're going to now start with creating our Docker file. So I Docker file, which is, as you can see, it says new file, right? It's going to make the Docker file in that directory. I'm going to press the I button to put this in insert mode. And then I am going to grab my code here. So let me grab this, and there's a good chance that when I build this, it doesn't initially work because I just added a bunch of tools, and I don't know if by default they're even available on what is it, like the Ubuntu's like repository. So I'll have to adjust that, and it'll be fun for us to kind of go through that to look and see, because I said I'm showing you guys how you do this from scratch, and it'll be really cool to actually capture any errors and stuff so that you guys can see what I'm doing. But now let's actually talk about what this snippet of code is. So very first thing you're going to do is you're going to start off with a Linux distro that you want to use as your base. Okay. I use Ubuntu. I like Ubuntu. I don't really think it matters. The only time there's like maybe some nuance could be like what packages are available, from my understanding. Other than that, I mean, Linux is Linux, more or less, right? But you can see here, right? So rolling, and then of course, right, that's probably edgy or frowned upon, so you probably want to specify a specific version. But like I say, I like to live life the way I do. So I have rolling. Now we're going to run. We're going to do app update app install y. You already know what that's for. So that it can grab like what available packages are and then start installing, right? So I have locals, tc dump, they go the htop, right, that I want to be able to use, and like a bunch of tools that I felt like I need or would be good to have. Some of these, now here's the thing, right? Some of these can already be available on the actual Unraid server, right? Like I believe I believe like OpenSSL, for example, right? Vim, obviously, curl, obviously, right? But you know, you don't want to have to sit there and be jumping in and out of your container, you know, to be running these commands. So that's why I added all of them in, you know, in this list, right? But here you go, right? And I even have a few disk tools that I want. That's that, okay? And then here's the thing. Now sometimes like you might have an issue when you're building these things from scratch. You might have some like really strange issues with like you know, the locale environment being set, and whatnot. So that's what these things are here for, right? Because it took me a minute to kind of like figure out how to like make sure I I had everything where it needed to be in order for it to work. So that's what this section is for. And then here is the most important thing, okay? So when you build these containers, okay, if there's no command, when you start the container, it's just going to immediately stop, because it would have turned itself on, right? Saw that there was nothing for it to do, and then terminated, right? And so then the only way to keep it up, I think, is you know, you'd have to go manually in the console, do interactive mode and all that stuff. And I didn't want to have to do that. So you use this command here, which is like basically you're going to make it like do a little sleep, like a sleep command, where like I believe the way it was explained is like just a process or whatever that's just like in slumber, but it still counts it as like an active kind of thing, right? So it will never terminate the actual container. And that's important because, right, you want to be able, you know, for convenience, because you guys know I hate the terminal with a passion, right? For convenience, it'd be nice if you could just go here to your Docker container, right? And then you just click on it, and then go in the console. Then that way you could just go straight to it through the, you know, through the website, instead of having an SSH into your server, then interact into the Docker container to then be inside of it to then do whatever it is you want to do, right? So that's what this part is. But that's that. So now I'm gonna go ahead and hit the escape button, hit the colon button. Let me write and quit. So WQ, and boom. All right. So now here is where it gets fun. So now we're about to go ahead and build this Docker container, okay? So now how do we do that? Well, very first command we are going to use, docker build -t, and then you're going to give it a name. Now here's the thing, right? So if, and let me see if I can like can I zoom in a little bit for you guys? Just a little bit, you know, just a little bit. All right. So now look, right, you can tag it whatever it is you want to call it, and then, you know, you do a colon, and then you can give it a version number, or you can call it latest, right? If you're planning on uploading this to your own like little Docker Hub repository, right, this is the format it has to be, right? It's going to be like your account name, I believe that's what it's called, right? And then of course the you know, what you named the repository, and then you give it the version numbers. And then as you can see here in my thing, right, you can give it multiple names all in one go. So as you can see here, I am I'm tagging it as, you know, the next version for this particular Docker container that I've made, as well as tagging it for the latest, since this would also be this would also obviously count as the latest one, right? Because I'm only on 0.002. So, oh, and then of course this last important thing is the period, right? So that tells Docker, like, you know, open up the Dockerfile that's like in this directory we're in right now, which is here. So that's that. So let's go ahead and hit enter, and let's see if it even works, right? I'd be really curious in seeing what happened. Yeah, see, so right off the bat, it actually does not like, looks like it doesn't like my doesn't like my comment. I thought I could get away with like adding the comments in there. I guess not. So that's fine, right? You won't have it in your thingamabob, so it's okay. So let me just go ahead and nuke this. Sucks that they wouldn't have it there, but at least you saw it, or at least I talked about it in the video as a good reminder, right? All right, now let's go ahead and try this again, right? So there we go, right? See, so now it's going through, and let's see what's happening, right? So it's going to, it's going to pull the Ubuntu image, right? And then within the Ubuntu image is then going to, as you can see, is actually then attempting to run and install all of the packages that I listed, and it has a complaint about not being able to find anything. So I want to say that all of those packages are available, so that's cool, right? We don't have to worry about that. So now what I'm gonna do is that I'm just going ahead and come back when it's done running, so we can move on to the next thing. Because like I said, because this is going to take a few minutes for it to do whatever it is it's got to do. All right, and it looked like it actually finished without a problem. Nice. So if we actually at this point come back here to our Unraid server, and if you go to the Docker section, if I refresh this, I should see a dangling container or a dangling like orphan image, right? And boom, right? So there you are, right? We have our container here. Or I'm sorry, I keep calling it container. Sorry, image, right? It's properly called an image. So here we are with our image. So what I'm gonna do now is let's go ahead and let's add it. So I'm going to show you now what do we do in order to get it up. Like I said, I already had this up before, so I believe I called it this. Right, and I'm just gonna change that to dash, but like I say, you call it whatever it is you want. Let me make sure that the names is actually no, it's not. So I need to actually go back. Let me just open up a new tab here real quick, and let me just grab the name. That's the convenient thing, right? Because you gotta make sure you use the correct tooling name. So here we go, right? I'm gonna go ahead and grab this, call this one the latest here, which is going to be what I want to use, right? Now here is where it gets like particular. Okay, so this container that you're about to create with these tools, this is meant to be like your own, as I call it, right, your own personal toolbox. Okay, so it's inherently supposed to be privileged. So one of the things that we're going to do is, you're not going to have it in bridge mode. You're going to make it a host, right? Because that gives it direct access to the network cards, right? Which you're going to need in order to like be able to even run some of those tools, right? And then of course you're going to have privileged. You're going to have it as privileged on, right? And what this should do is this should be all that you need. Let's see if this works without an issue. All right, so now let's go ahead. So we see that it's up and running now. Now here's the thing, right? Because I forgot that obviously this is this would have worked naturally, but obviously I have this on my Docker hub, so it actually ended up pulling the latest version from my actual Docker hub repository, not my local version. At least it didn't look like that's what it did. So and that's fine, right? Because later on I'm gonna show you guys how that whole connection thing works, right? Because the most important thing I wanted to just show you, right, is just how it's working, right? So here we go, right? As you can see, we have our container here. Let me just that's right, because I should be able to see everything that I would possibly want to. Now obviously I didn't what's the word, right? I didn't mount the directories. Whenever I need to, I'll obviously I'll do that, but right, all of this is just inside the container. So if you don't mount no directories, then obviously you won't have access to any of that. But if you see here now, if I do htop and look at that, right? As you can see, htop is running, right? And it shows you can see it shows all of the different things that's running on my server, right? You get tail scale, all that good stuff. Let me quit and let's do, can I do btop? Yeah, btop. Yeah, right. See, so as you can see all the processes, and then you can see the stuff that they're doing, right? And that's it. that is how you get these tools on your server. Let me hit the escape button and hit quit. The quote unquote pop array, right? I said, there's some escaping issues that I haven't quite figured out yet that I'm still working on, but that's what that is. Now let's wrap this up by talking about the Docker Hub portion. Okay. So like I said, right, this was all you needed to do. You could have just, you built it, you tag it, given it whatever name you want, and then you just make sure you use that name when you make the container, and then make sure the container has the appropriate permissions, right? Now, if you want this to be able to, be persistent, and what I mean by that is like, actually save somewhere that you can, get it back. You can use Docker Hub. Or if you do the what is it called, the directory thing for Docker on the server in particular, which I believe I do. I mean, I guess technically you could back that up as well. Yeah, see, I'd have to mess around. If you know where it's at, then more power to you. Otherwise, right, you just you just either need to make sure that this is backed up and you'd restore it, or you use Docker Hub, right? So Docker Hub, right? So let's talk about Docker Hub. So here we go into Docker Hub, right? Now, what would you do is you would just go to repositories. Okay, let me click here, and then we would create a repository. All right. And then this is where you'd give it a name, and then you can give it whatever short little description you want to give it. Sure. Right. And then you hit create. And then what it'll do is it'll show you the commands, the important commands in order to actually then get your Docker, your container up to, Docker Hub. All right. It is just about finished here. So I'm just going to wait. Boom, and then boom, right? So see, this is it now going into the second command, and as you can see, it says these layers already exist, right? So no need to do that again. So then it push the latest digest, and there we go. So now when I go to my my repository here, which I mean you guys are like more than free to use if you want, there you go, right? It is showing version 3 as well as the latest. Okay, and then this was that's the timestamp on it, and that's that, right? That is how you build these these little toolbox containers yourself, where they'll have whatever tools you need to use on your Unraid server that you can't install directly on your Unraid server. Yeah, that's that. So you guys take care, and I'll catch you at the next video.